Hi, friends. I'm going to start with a word of the day. The word of the day today is subjugation. Here's the meaning of that word: the action of bringing someone or something under domination or control. And that's sort of where we are, in our political discourse today, or where we are in the world, where we are certainly in America. Um, and this is just going to be my take. The thing is, when you come onto YouTube, and what you see a lot of is both sides pointing. Look at them. They're wrong. Can't you see they're wrong? Well, I'm going to start from a standpoint that, you know, all that's the neural pathways are set there. If you're a I don't know, I wanted to say a normal person, but if you're a non-MAGA person and you're anti-Trump, you know, I would say you're pretty much set that way. And if you're MAGA, you're pretty much set that way. 152 million people voted in the 2024 election. Approximately 1.5 million more people voted for Donald Trump and voted for Kamala Harris. So that's it's somewhere between 1 and 1.5% maybe of the people, of the voters in this country voted that way. So that's no that's they I think if you listen to Donald Trump, it was a landslide, and the people have spoken overwhelmingly. And that's not the case. The thing you got to keep in mind is that there's a vast population of people in America that do not buy into what the Trump administration wants, that do not buy into any of this. I would say, let's go ahead and say out of 152 million people, let's say 60 million on each side were stone set. Like, I don't even need to, you don't have to campaign to me. I'm voting for Kamala Harris, or I'm voting for Donald Trump. But there is that middle portion of people that, maybe there's an issue. Maybe they didn't like the price of eggs. Maybe they wanted to make sure they like the idea of there being no more war. They like the idea of prices coming down. And they formulated a decision based on that. So, um, let's say another 30 million people voted that way. Well, the thing to keep in mind is Donald Trump is a lousy, to me, this is just my opinion, a lousy administrator of the American government. However, he's a fantastic salesman. And what that means is he can take someone who is iffy and turn them into, make the sale, get them to sign on the line which is dotted. And so he's good at that, and that's what he did. But, you know, what's happened is none of that has come to pass. So he's, being a fantastic liar is part and parcel with selling or marketing. Hell, marketing in today's world is lying. I mean, if you want to get somebody's attention, you got to tell them they're going to get a free iPhone. Well, of course you're not going to get a free iPhone. There's a whole lot tied to that, and it's anything but free. Yet we as a people accept that. We just accept. We've come to a point where lying is accepted as just business as usual. So at any rate, Trump made all the right promises and managed to reel in those pliable people. And so he won the election. But now, you know, he tends to think, and all of them he tends to think the other side is the enemy within. If we could only get rid of Democrats, then our troubles are over. They're really pesky. The reality is that Democrats represent all, for all intents and purposes, as many people, and I think more than represent uh, than Republicans represent. And at the current time, if you look at the polling, that is the way it is. Those 30 million people that he managed to reel in, they're peeling off in droves. That's why Democrats keep winning all the special elections. And in the ones they don't, they get much closer in severely red areas than they did before. That's because those people that bought into the promises realize that they're all lies. That's what Trump does. He lies. And you know, uh, I don't know, and he's never going to be happy unless everyone has been subjugated. And by that, I mean, come around to his way of thinking. He wins, you lose, my way or the highway. But that's not how people are wired. Um, People are not going to, I'm not going to, it's like CBS. You can put, you can turn CBS into another Fox, but what they're finding is all that means is people that were watching CBS on Art MAGA are going to tune out of CBS. It doesn't mean people are going to look at the news on CBS and go, "Oh, this must be right. I've been wrong my entire life. They're right. So now I'm going to change." No, it doesn't work that way. You could say the same thing about Iran, or Iran would be in the same category as Ukraine now. The people of Ukraine are not going to roll over and be subjugated by another country. Uh, they're going to die first, and I would assume the same thing would apply to Iran, um, which I'm sure the Iran is, just like here. Iran is 99% full of good and decent people. They just have terrible leadership like we do here in America right now. But, you know, Aunt Millie and Uncle Tom think it's just fine, as do the Republicans in Congress. So I think what they're looking at is they don't even care about democracy anymore. They don't seem to. They may be feigning the appearance of that, but I think that's one thing we've always had going for us in America is that basically people consider democracy to be the most important thing above all. Win or lose, that's what's important. Because really, if we lose democracy, we're not really. I mean, we're something else than we've been. I mean, we've all gotten really used to the fact that we get to go to the voting booth and have a say, and the winner takes over and the loser goes home, and we all know that democracy is working. But they're making you think this whole thing about voter fraud. It's the fraud. Trump is the fraud. He's the only one that wants to be, illegally take over elections. There is no, who is going to walk into, how many people in America, no matter where they're from, and only American citizens can vote, and there is not a mass amount of people that are like trying to vote as non-citizens. I don't think people are going, there have been very few instances of actual voter fraud, certainly not enough to change elections. The big smokescreen is making everyone think that Democrats are the illegal ones, are the bad ones, are causing voter fraud. And it's all geared toward it's the kind of gaslighting that's necessary. Um, Sleight of hand, like a magician, so you don't watch the hand that's really doing the illegal stuff. They are the ones that are looking into all kinds of ways, and there always have been ways. There hasn't been a really a free and fair election in America since it was founded. They managed to, keep women out until the last 100 years. They managed to, of course, slaves couldn't vote. We went through the Jim Crow era, making it incredibly difficult for blacks to vote. And that's what they want to go back to because, in the mid 60s with the Voting Rights Act, um, that was put in place to try to even all that out. Now, um, 50 years later, uh, we've got a 6-3 Supreme Court, and these guys are looking at it like, well, I think things are cool. We probably don't really need that anymore. Well, hell yeah, we do, because uh, they people are willing to use every trick in the book to keep people from voting and make sure things come out the way they want. The country should be divided. And all Democrats want to do when it comes to voting is make it as fair as possible. All Republicans want to do is try to subvert the system to where we can make sure that, um, you know, voters don't choose um, the winners, that the winners choose who the voters are. And anyone who says it works both ways is dead wrong. The only reason Democrats are doing those kind of things is because they can't bring a knife to a gunfight with the Republicans every time. The Republicans are bringing the gun, you have to bring a gun too. And of course, I mean that metaphorically, not physically. Um, so, gerrymander requires more gerrymandering by the other side. But in a couple of years ago, all the Democrats in Congress voted to outlaw gerrymandering, and guess how many Republicans voted for it? Zero. So they're not interested in trying to imagine if we really had a fair democratic system, things would be very different. But win or lose, it would be fair. Anyway, now I find myself trying to, on a soapbox, trying to convince either way, when really what I'm all trying to do is give it to you from my perspective. And that's where we are. And it's taking Trump taking a little bit and trying to use that to subjugate what he calls the enemy within. So, we are like strong. We are not going to be subjugated in any way, shape, or form. Um, so you've got to get that out of your minds. And somehow Aunt Millie and Uncle Tom, I don't really know what they're really thinking because they probably want to have a good relationship with you or the other way around. But the thing is, they're not, they don't really care about um, democracy being stripped or by uh, you being subjugated. So that's the name of that tune. That's it for today. I'm kind of new to this, but I'm just trying to, see uh, if I can come up with some people that are kind of latched onto what I'm latched onto. But that's just where we are. But it's not going to, let's just put it this way. say for instance, it came time for the midterms and it was like, oh no, we can't have them. We're not voting anymore. It's not going to change those those 60 million people who are one way or the other. It is not going to change them. So you're just going to make, all it's going to do is make people, half the people, more miserable. So why? What is the point to making people miserable? Why can't people just have their little piece of the pie that is important to them? Why always want to take away what people have, even though it really doesn't hurt you at all? I don't see who it hurts. If a man marries a man, or if someone wears the wrong clothes, or if you know there's a zillion, or if someone wants to terminate an abortion. If you don't like abortions, don't have one. But you know, you're not holier than thou. Um, well, anyway, that's a whole other subject. But why try? What is with the all the subjugation? Um, just let people be different, be themselves, stay out of people's business. Out.